So there we are. We were on tenterhooks and now we don't have to wait any longer. Djokovic is being deported from Australia and he apparently accepts the decision. That's very gracious of him. Overnight, 3 judges sat during a Sunday. The Federal Court of Appeal sat on a Sunday and came to their decision incredibly fast for an immigration case both in Australia and here in the UK. But they had to tackle this issue of Djokovic, who apparently is an icon for the anti-vax community. He poses a risk, the Prime Minister said, to public health and good order. And he now poses a risk, I would say, to a rise in resentment by that community. He's spent 10 days wrangling. That's almost 2 weeks of isolation, which he would have had to do had he come in without being vaxxed in the first place. 2 weeks of isolation demanded by the Australian authorities if you were not properly vaccinated. And his legal team have been, well, I don't know whether they've been as effective as they should have been, but they've certainly been vocal. They've called the Australian position irrational and unreasonable, which I think is quite right. Piers Morgan, in contrast, claims that Djokovic is a rule cheat and a liar. I think that's going a bit far. He may have had, as others have said, a selfish disregard for people, certainly by going out after having tested positive in December, after having got a positive PCR test, and then doing a photo shoot. He called that an error of judgment. It all sort of reminds me of Carey's situation, doesn't it? Cash and Carey, Djokovic. I'm sure Boris would love to have a Djokovic moment so that he could move his own issues off the front page. Maybe Carey is Boris's Djokovic moment, because there is a theory that the whole Djokovic story is simply a way of moving the issue of a health crisis, a national Australian health crisis, a hospital crisis, off the front pages, and putting Djokovic there. It's certainly done its job. So what is? There's 3 issues with the Djokovic case. Number 1, his refusal to get vaccinated. Number 2, his willingness, effectively, to infect others. So, for example, journalists at the photo shoot. He wouldn't want to disappoint, he said. But this isn't a case for Australia. This is a case for Serbia. And number 3, his impact on the Australian anti-vax lobby. Now, all this is apparently, all this is apparently something which is within the orbit of the government to decide. It seems to me that it sets a very nasty precedent. That here is the law makes a decision, and then the government can overrule that. We in Britain have exactly the same options. I find that very, very disturbing, that one can go through a court case and then have the whole thing upended because it's convenient to the political debate of the time, because it gets the hospital crisis off the front page. And as I say, that makes that makes Boris's crisis look really quite straightforward, doesn't it? But the lawyers said that Boris said that Djokovic posed a low risk about passing on COVID. That was one of their main arguments. Maybe he does pose a low risk. That is, unless he's got COVID and doesn't want to disappoint photographers or journalists. This is a very messy story, and it could have been avoided had the Australian government refused Djokovic a visa in the first place, which is what they should have done. This is playing catch up. It's not the way a modern government should be behaving. We have the technology to act quicker, and we should be using it. We shouldn't be going through this whole process. This was theatre. This was theatre staged as deflection. That, I'm afraid, is my conclusion. Please do disagree with me. I'd love to hear your views, but I think this was theatre, and I think Djokovic was used as a wonderful way to get uncomfortable stories off the front page. Please follow the channel. Please ring the bell.